Hi class, this is Miss Miller and thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to talk about how we can convert our phrases into chunks and how we can take those chunks and put them into a paragraph. So let's take a look at some of the questions that we generated just a few days ago in regards to the ban of The Penny by Mark Lewis. And we had several questions. In fact, our questions were probably more than the actual text itself. So hopefully after the chunking that we did or completed and went through our questions, talked about it, had a presentation on it, we have answers to our questions. You may recognize this sentence. This is sentence number 1 of the Precis, which is what we're going to do on Monday. But this sentence comes from our previous 2 essays, and it was your first sentence that I asked you to sort of separate and be the beginning of an introduction. So this is our first sentence in the Precis. It requires the author's name, the credentials, which I didn't include in the example that we did today, but the genre, the title of the work, the date in parentheses, a verb, a rhetorically accurate verb, and the word that. So those items are super important when we go to construct the first sentence of our Precis. So I want you to practice that if you can this weekend, or look at the examples that I do for you, or the one example that I do for you later in this lecture. So here is an example of what it looks like in a different text, the first sentence. And like I said, we've done this before, so you can look at the other 2 sentences that you created. Now here is a template for you to just fill in the blanks. You can push pause if you need to and just sort of take a really good look at this first sentence. So how am I going to know that you actually listened to this video? So I had to include this in the middle of the instruction. But on Monday, what I need you to do is bring not 1 penny, but 2. 2 pennies to class. And actually, that's how I'll know you, 1, listen to the lecture. You'll give me 2 when you enter the door. But we're going to use these pennies for Wednesday's Socratic seminar. So when you throw your stuff in the dish, instead of the pearls, you're going to use a penny. Okay, so bring 2. So here is sentence 2, and this is where we just take the chunking that we did prior to, we put it in order, and we just drop it in the sentence template. Here is a sample of what it might look like in a piece of work. And here is the template for sentence 2. Go ahead and press pause. And here's sentence 3, where you have to include the author's purpose, followed by, once you've done that, followed by the words in order to. And you'll see on the example I do that based on the article, and I've identified or highlighted those words so that they are emphasized. Here's an example of what that might look like. The purpose of this document is to, and it tells you convince all the readers of the necessity to officially, and so on. And then you'll see further in the sentence it says in order to. That needs to be there. So this is the template for sentence number 3. You have to have the word purpose and tell us what the purpose is. You need to also include the words in order to, and you can press pause if necessary. Here is sentence 4, which is the final sentence of the Precis. You include the tone, and you'll see a list of tone words, and then the intended audience. And you'll see that when I complete the Precis at the end of this lecture. Here are a list of tone words that you can choose from. You'll see that when I go to write my Precis, I selected a different one, not necessarily on this list, but this is just the author's attitude about the subject. And here is what sentence 4 would look like. You would also need to include the word tone in your sentence, and you would need to have the word audience in your sentence, and you'll see that I do that in the final sentence. And this is sentence number 4. You'll see again, you have to select the tone word, the attitude. This is the template. So you can also fill this out and press pause if that helps. So here's what it looks like when we put it all together. We take our chunking and we submit it to sentence number 2 of our précis. It reads, journalist Mark Lewis, in the article Ban the Penny, 2002, argues that the penny serves little to no purpose. He backs up his claim first when he outlines how the anti-penny operates. Then he describes how the Tennesseans support the bill. He next elaborates on Cobb's copper preference and finally justifies the Wharton School's capacity to initiate a study. Lewis's purpose is to encourage others to do away with the penny in order to secure or improve the economic conditions of the country. Lewis writes with an objective tone to an audience of the American citizens. So obviously I'm still typing, but I wanted you guys to see and hear what the précis sounded like. And what's going to happen on Monday, and it's just going to be practice. I'm going to ask you to write a précis. It's 4 sentences. You will be introduced to a new article, perhaps on the penny. You'll need to do the chunking so that you can enter in your sentence number 2. So there's quite a bit of work that you're doing. You may think 4 sentences is not a lot, but you're actually going to be asked to read a new document, 1, 2, chunk, and then 3, go ahead and construct your 4-sentence précis. This one will be practice. Now, this isn't necessarily an argumentative response, but it's part of the process, and we need to be able to understand what the text says before we can make or form our own argument. So go ahead and look at the written version. Many of you asked for me to write things out for you so you can see what it looks like, a sample. So here it is. Feel free to press pause. You don't need to record this. I can print it or put this in the supplemental reading on the classroom website.